Bienvenidos a Panamá. La hora local es mañana. Estaremos en tránsito los próximos minutos. Por favor, permanezcan sentados.
Mi nombre es Antonio James, tengo 31 años. Espero que le guste la historia que le voy a contar. Usted sabe que cuando estamos en la etapa de 14, 15 y 16 años, andamos en la etapa donde no le hacemos caso a nuestros padres, a nuestras madres, y queremos estar en un vínculo diferente a los consejos que ellos nos dan. Pasé por muchas circunstancias, vendiendo semáforos, limpié vidrio de carro. Bueno, tuve una vida bastante complicada. Y una persona que me trae conexión a esto fue la persona que me llevó a esto, que fue mi tío. El emprendimiento de joven, porque él me enseñaba de chiquito que si no estudiábamos, íbamos a tener una cajita de fósforo como casa y no íbamos a echar hacia adelante, sino que íbamos a ver 4 paredes. Y cuando él me decía esto de joven, yo quería trabajar ya, yo quería ya tener una buena casa, yo quería tener ya un buen futuro de joven. Cuando empezamos en esto, los policías no creían que nosotros podíamos cambiar, la gente en el barrio no pensaban que íbamos a cambiar, y gracias al cambio que tenemos, sí fue posible dejar lo que fui atrás y echar hacia adelante en lo que estoy ahora mismo, que es ser guía turista. Cuando camino con los turistas me siento una persona importante porque ellos se meten en la historia que le estamos contando. Mi responsabilidad es hacer que las personas se sientan bien. Y eso es un guía turística. Al llevar el grupo, me sientan satisfecho. Y gracias al turismo, todo se ha tranquilizado, que ha sido problemas, riesgo. Antes le robaban a los turistas, le robaban a los carros. Ahí podemos ver la evolución del turismo en Panamá. Soy feliz, tengo un hijo, tengo una familia que me quiere mucho, sí tengo orgulloso del cambio que tengo en mi vida. Hoy en día mi madre está estudiando, con el recurso que tengo en la guía turística, le pago la universidad a mi madre, me siento muy orgulloso por eso.
So I'd like to tell you the story behind that change that you saw. I'm honored to be here. I'm excited to be here. I got to spend a little time and what I see is a lot of people really passionate about change. And I'm also passionate about change. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about. It's the change, it's the toughest change. It's the change of humans. Even if our passion is environment, in the end, we're faced with the same questions. How do we get humans to change the way they do things to have a better world? And so the story behind the change you saw there involved a process. And I'm going to go a little bit into that process with a disclaimer. We stole half of it. The other half of it we made up. We're not sure if it really works as well in other places it's worked here. So we leave it with a disclaimer, but I give it to you because I think it's worked well enough that it's worth sharing at this point. You're all going to go back to your worlds. You've got your programs, you've got your thoughts and your challenges, and everybody in Esperanza feels like we should be sharing the little bit we've learned and see if people can take it and improve upon it. I'm a real estate developer, which makes it ironic that I'm up here talking about anything having to do with sustainability because we have the worst reputation in the world, and for the most part, we deserve it. We do know something about change, but it's this kind of change. Our job is to change physical things that look like this into something that looks like that. It's a very simple change. Not necessarily simple. It can be complicated, but it's not complex. And that's a really important distinction I want to make. I want to leave you with a distinction. You may know this. Some of you do. If you don't, if you do, bear with me. But there's a really important difference between complicated things and complex things. Changing that building is complicated. You need to get a lot of things together, a lot of plans, a lot of materials, a lot of things have to go in the right order for it to happen. Complicated. Some engineer figured out that when you turn the key, some electric happens, some wires, some fluids, I don't know this term, who knows. Really complicated stuff, but it's not complex. Human change is complex. So You put me in the driver's seat of that car, and it goes from being a complicated machine to something very complex. Because the engineer can tell me mathematically, with precision, that I will get in that car and it'll take 14 minutes to get to the airport if I go a certain speed. But as soon as I get in that car, I pick up my phone, I start texting, I turn on the radio, I get distracted, I run into something, it takes longer, it rains, who knows, I miss my airplane, and then unattended things happen. I miss the flight, I get home a day late, my wife's mad at me, she puts me in the doghouse, I get tick fever, I'm in the hospital for 6 months, who knows? The thing about complexity, anytime you get humans involved, you have unintended consequences. Things get really complex really quickly. So the way you navigate complexity is by having principles. The principles might be very simple principles. I know things sometimes take longer than they should, so I leave a little bit of time before I get in the car. Give myself an extra 20 minutes. But I get home, I don't get tick fever. You know, maybe I drive defensively. You look for principles that help guide you through complexity. And I mention that because we're real estate developers. We developed in a very complex little urban ecosystem. It's a historic district. And it has all sorts of different people, different interests. It's complex. So we had a principle from the very beginning. And it was a principle that made sense to us. It was a principle, it's economic inclusion, it was equity. We said, you know, if we're gonna be in here messing around, revitalizing people's neighborhood, we better be sure that they can be included, they won't be pushed out. My point isn't to push that principle on you. We can debate it, some people would agree with it, some people wouldn't. My point is that we had this principle. We knew we were going into something complex and we just kind of had this idea that that was the right way to go. So we met Antonio and his buddies. But the Antonio we met was not that Antonio. It was this Antonio. And I blurred that out, but I can tell you in that picture he's holding a gun. This is 10 years ago. He and his gang lived in a block away from that hotel. They actually at one time lived inside the hotel. That picture was taken by a photographer who was documenting people in the neighborhood. And when the photographer went to take a picture of him, Antonio pulled out. He was so proud of being a criminal that that was how he wanted to be, how he wanted his portrait taken. So this is a very hard case for change. We were building that hotel and we had a problem. We were 6 months out and we found out our contractor was paying these guys, was paying them security money. But security is when you hire somebody to protect your building from strangers. Extortion is when somebody tells you to pay them, otherwise they're going to take your building. Paying money to these guys, and we choices. We realized that these guys, we could either continue paying them. One way to go. It didn't have anything to do with equity. It didn't seem to be in line with our principle. Police, try and have them put in jail, or at a minimum, put police around the plaza. We certainly couldn't have $400 a night to stay in our hotel and tell them, you know, don't turn right, don't go down to where these guys are. So the third alternative was behavior change. Can we get these guys to change their behavior? So our principle of equity, of getting them included, had a problem. The problem was these guys were already living for free. They already had a place. They already had the thing that we thought was the ultimate aspiration for people. We thought that we would change people's behavior. If we just offered them the ability to have a home, that would be enough. If we could figure out a way to include them economically, get them a job, opportunity would be enough. Turned out it wasn't. But we learned something about this process. And I think this is interesting for some of you who are having your programs, because a lot of times we think that opportunity is what people need. It's just opportunity. And that's right. People are excluded from opportunity, do need opportunity. But there's steps before that. And that's what we learned, that there was a step before, and it was dialogue. I've heard the word empathy a number of times today, and really that's a lot of what dialogue is. What dialogue is being able to understand the mental model somebody else has. We all walk around with our models of how the world works, of how we navigate complexity, the complex societies we live in, with the model of cause and effect in our head. And each person's is different. And when we come from very different parts of society, we have very different models in our head of how the world works. Dialogue is a way to understand somebody else's model, to see how they see the world, empathize with them. It also does something else. Dialogue builds trust. So we learned that we were working in a low trust environment, that people had years, had generations of reasons not to trust each other. Rich and poor, different countries, me being a gringo coming into a neighborhood that was bombed by gringos. This was a low trust environment. But dialogue got us to trust. And with trust, something else happened. Trust gave us the ability to start synchronizing our models. Our mental models started to become one model. We started to have a shared vision. And shared visions are amazingly powerful. We had seen programs come into our neighborhood where they offered work training and nobody showed up. It was an opportunity. Or jobs were offered and guys would show up for 2 days and leave. And you'd say to yourself, how can a guy who has nothing not take a job? Turned out the guys weren't motivated. And having a shared vision is amazing. This is the thing we always say, you probably do this yourselves. You probably imagine a goal and that pulls you towards it. You picture being successful and the next thing you know you are successful. That's the same thing a shared vision does, but it does it around multiple people. Multiple people, after they've had a dialogue, they've gotten to know each other, they've gotten to trust each other, they can start to say, hey, what could a better world for both of us look like? What could a better neighborhood? What could a better marriage? It's a picture that we'll share. Psychologists call it cognitive dissonance. You have a picture in your head and you become propelled to it. So we got together with the guys and we just kept saying, hey, how do you see the world? They said, we see all this activity happening around us. We see these buildings being built. We're not a part of it. That's why we break them. I said, well, what would look better? Why aren't our buildings nice? I said, why aren't they nice? We don't know. Why don't we? They would be great if they were nice. It'd be great for us. Let's get out there and work on it. So little by little, a shared vision was formed of a neighborhood that was better for everybody than the neighborhood that we were living in at that time. And that created the motivation. And guys who had opportunities to study, it's not like we didn't have school. It's not like they didn't have school. They decided not to go to the schools. They left. Most of them left in the third grade, before the third grade. So all of a sudden they were motivated because they had a picture in their head of what they wanted. And they sat and they took classes and they learned to do things that they didn't know how to do, everything from life skills to learning how to actually interview for a job, learning how to take care of their kids. And once people are motivated, then opportunities really, really matter. When people want something, when they want an opportunity, then it really, really matters. Then they're ready to take advantage of the training. They're ready to pitch their business to their business idea to a group of business leaders. And when the business leaders are on the other side of the table and also have a shared vision for that better community, everybody gets why they're there. And they get intuitively what they need to do to get to that, to make that image they have in their head actually happen. So the opportunity for a tour company, and that tour company, you saw a little bit of it. It exists. These guys have gone on to, now I've met the president of Panama once. I met him because they introduced me to him. I mean, this is ironic, but these guys are now, they've taken that opportunity and they've turned that opportunity into equity, into ownership of a piece of this society. And really, that was a whole community working to make it happen. But we had kind of followed along those steps. I'm not saying that we actually knew what we were doing at the time. Now we've done it a few times over with other groups and we kind of understand it better. At the time, it was trial and error. But we were able to put it together post hoc and see that's kind of what the pattern looked like. So I share that with you. I offer it with you. If it's helpful, great. If you can improve on it, wonderful. Take it with you. Send me an email. Make it better. But that's what we've done. Thank you.
The people that are going to sculpture during the afternoon, that's the people who are going to take you. Yes, and then now we have global villages. You can exit through doors. Oh, well, that's not. Hey, Arnold.
Zero viewers.
And everyone is leaving, so say bye to them.
Bye-bye,
Thank you for
everyone.
Nadie lo está viendo. Sí, o sea, que justamente es un Keynote.
Es cero viewers.
Savage.